So I'm a graduate at CPUT, and I was studying with James. We were studying visual communication design. So currently, I'm running a business that is a multimedia company. So our aim is not basically to just provide people with services that has to do with graphic design or marketing and stuff like that. We're trying to create products that are going to be very interactive with like customers. And so currently we have a product that we're selling which is called, it's a smart business card, right? So it is called an NFC, near field communication. It is a technology that people had been using, but they're just not familiar with it. But we're trying to take it abroad into like a lot of industries, because there is a lot we could do with the NFC tag itself. So my question was more of like, how can I approach it to bigger corporation that they're not using it, but they have the potential to buy into it? Because I tried to approach the ShopRite aid office of the marketing. They did message me, but I was scared that they could have read, because they read my idea, now they can steal it or they can use it, you know. So I feel it took long to respond back to actually giving me the opportunity to pitch it to them as a presentation. So how can I go about, how can I like inform someone about my product but not give them like enough information that they can then take it as their own, because they are big already?
Yeah. Look, your question is loaded, and unfortunately it is the experience of lots of entrepreneurs where that happens. You've got a great idea and people steal it. I mean, we all know the whole please call me situation with Vodacom, and how years later that guy got paid out millions, but he fought them for a long time as the originator of the idea, saying that you stole my idea. So this happens all the time. That's a reality. And I mean, I've been through that myself, where I pitched an idea and I really wanted to impress this client. So I pulled out all the stops. I showed them everything, and then they stole the idea, and the thing was broadcast on TV, so they couldn't even deny that they stole it, because every picture that I'd given them, was on TV, even to the guests at the event and all of that. And they still fought tooth and nail to say, this was us, this was our idea. And anyway, so this is real, it happens. You get the school of hard knocks that people talk about, that's part of it. But what you can do with protecting your ideas, firstly, before I go to pitching yourself to corporates, is with copyright law and trademark rules or laws these days. It's actually very simple. If you can prove, like our Please Call Me guy, if you can prove that you brought a conversation to the table, or you had an idea, like let's say, for example, ShopRite now launches your product in 2022 or 2023, but you can prove that you had this idea in 2022, whether you've got an email you sent to someone, a WhatsApp message, a social media post that you made, you've got proof that that idea was in your brain and in your conversation before they launched. Now the onus is on them to prove that they had the idea before the proof that you have available. So that's why it's important to document. People hate writing business plans, for example, but it's important to document your idea in a well thought out and well written, just a concept note, and I mean, you can Google templates for concept notes and find a basic one to follow, but document it and save it, because again, with saving things online like Google Drive and Box and all these options that are available, it's dated. The minute you upload a file, it's dated. So you can prove after, when you speak to ShopRite at the end of this year, and if they steal the idea going forward, you can prove just by the record on your Google Drive of the timestamp and the date on your idea that I had that idea way before I spoke to you, and here I've got a record of our email, of our meeting, and then you launch something afterwards. When we had our meeting, you didn't. And nowadays you can record meetings. I go into meetings with clients and I say, look, for minute purposes, I'm recording the meeting. Does everybody consent? Yes, and we record. So you've got a record that you brought the idea to the table. We can go a lot deeper. I think we can have this conversation offline. I'm happy to do that. But that's just sort of a basic how to protect yourself. Keep a record, because if it does go down that road, then you've got the records to back up the fact that you were the originator. of the idea. People love minutes of meetings. It's a standard thing. So like I said, recording or sending an email afterwards saying, we discussed the following. I initiated this part. You responded that way. Here's a record of our conversation. It's standard practice. And even sending an agenda beforehand, and on the agenda, you mention idea pitch, So if anybody reflects back on that meeting, they can see there was an agenda point that you were going to pitch an idea. So just record keeping is very important in business across the board, but particularly when you want to protect your intellectual property, because it's also not just big corporates that steal your ideas. So that's the one part of your question. The other part of your question about how to pitch yourself to big corporates, I think this is where entrepreneurs fail themselves, because we don't want to go through the compliance requirements to do business with big business. There's simple things like being a registered business. That's important. Being tax registered, for example. That is important if you want to do business with with most corporates actually in South Africa. So it's a little bit more formal, but it does open up the door for you to now make it onto their procurement systems. A lot of big business requires you to list on their supplier database. So like when I started this business in 2020, my first week was just about that. Researching, I found the companies that I was interested to do work with, and I said, do you have a supplier database? Yes or no, or procurement database, some of them will call it. And if they say yes, I ask, are there forms that I can fill in up front if I want to be listed as a supplier on your system or not? Or do I have to wait until there's like a request for proposal or whatever? Some will say yes, here's the forms, get onto our supplier database, because we call on suppliers that are on our database. And others will say no, wait until there's a request for proposal. And then I keep a list of who are the ones that I can list with now, and who are the ones that I need to monitor in the media to see if they put out a request for proposal. But until you do that work, it's not that easy to get into big corporates, especially like your retail chain stores, because they've got certain governance checks that they need to have in place. They need to, they go through their BEE audits, where they've got to prove that they're doing business with small businesses. So if you don't have records, if you're not even registered, it's very difficult for them to prove that you were not just someone's cousin, but you were a legitimate business that they were doing business with. So there is a bit of formalizing that needs to happen if you want to grow into that market. And it's different for every industry, but in the main, that is sort of the basic touch points, if I can put it that way, that will open up the door for you to crack it with big business. Does that answer you?
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to put on the mic, but actually that was like amazing.